welcome to Module 6 of Practical Preaching. I hope that this has been a benefit to you, that you've been able to take some practical things that you can apply to your own message prepping process to help you preach better and clearer sermons. In this module, we want to talk about how you can get ahead. How you can get ahead so that you're not working week of every single week to prepare your messages. I know that might sound great, like, oh, I would love to get to the spot of where I'm not, feeling the weight of having to go from no message to a full message every single week. Well, you can. So this module, I'm going to share with you some benefits of getting ahead, share how we do it at New City Church, and then maybe you can take a few things and apply them to your own situation. And so here are a few benefits of being ahead in your sermon prep process. One benefit is, again, that you don't have to stress out every single week of having to start from scratch to having a fully developed message. Like, wouldn't that be great? Is that in the Monday morning, you've just preached, it's Monday morning, that you already have a message that's maybe not finished, but pretty close to ready to go, and you don't have to feel the pressure every week from having nothing to having a message. So that's one great benefit, is it takes the pressure off a little bit. Another benefit is that it gives you the flexibility on the weeks that you have a lot going on. Maybe you have a vacation, or maybe it's been a particularly busy week with, people needing help in the church, or for whatever it is, whatever reason why you might have a lot going on. Wouldn't it be nice to know that, hey, I have a lot going on this week. I can actually cut down on my sermon prep time so I can do other things, but not ruin or diminish the quality of my sermon in any way, because I've already done a lot of the work ahead of time before this week even began. So it gives you the flexibility when you have a lot going on to not have to feel the pressure that week of doing all the stuff that you have to do and prepare a sermon from scratch. And then another benefit of being prepared ahead of time, of not being week to week every single week, is that when you are a few, maybe even 2 weeks, but even more than that, 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead, that means you know what's coming up. So as things happen in your life, you can begin to gather stories or illustrations. Whereas if you had written that message week of and you're scrambling to find a story or an illustration to kind of show or to emphasize a certain point, you know you're speaking on a certain topic or a certain passage in a few weeks. And so when certain things happen, you can be like, oh, that would be a great illustration, a great story, a great benefit or great addition to this message. Just allowing yourself to sit with it a little bit longer, to think through it a little bit longer, and to grab some things that you may not have had the time to think through or add if you were creating that message week of. And so those are some benefits to being ahead. And here's what it looks like for us here at New City Church. Again, we are a newer church plant. As the time this course is released, we're about a year and a half-ish into our church plant. We don't have a large staff. We don't have a lot of money. We don't have tons and tons of people. But we're ahead here at New City Church, and so you can also be ahead yourself. And so what it looks like for me and for us is we stay about 4 weeks ahead at all times. So 4 weeks from today, I know and I've already prepared largely what I'm going to say in those weeks. And so what happens is the 4 or 5 weeks out, I will spend, for me, Tuesday, but it could be any time for you. Most of the day, Tuesday is my biggest prep day. I'll spend a day prepping a message that's 4 weeks out. So I'll be studying and reading and putting a message together and writing it and going through it. And I'll probably get 70 to 80% done on a good week. Doesn't always work like that, but I'll get 70 to 80% done. And then later on in that week, we will have a message collaboration, is what we call it, where I will actually have other people speak to my message. And then here's the great thing of having other people hear your message before you give it. Then they can provide feedback and tell you, hey, have you thought of this, or this would sound better, as opposed to hearing it after you've given your message and you're like, well, that was great, but I can't do anything with it. And so I won't go over my message, but we'll go to the whiteboard. I'll write with the outline that we've talked about in this module and the biblical text that I'm going to use. I'll put my outline on a whiteboard. I won't give my message, but everyone will have my message notes up, and I'll just talk through, here's what I'm going to say, here's my illustrations, here are the main points. And then we'll talk about, okay, do these main points, do these answers to the outline questions, do they sound good? Does the bottom line sound good? And we'll talk, we might argue, and we'll try to say, okay, what is the best way to make this flow? What are some funny stories or illustrations? What works and what doesn't? So about 4 or 5 weeks out, I'm about 70 to 80% done with my message. Then I talk with it over with our team and get their feedback. And then the next week, I will then sit down with our worship leader or whoever you have with you that helps plan your services, or maybe you're the one that plans your service. And then we'll take the message, we'll have the bottom line, we'll have it pretty much worked through, and we'll pick songs and design the service around that message. Another benefit of being ahead, right, is that you can actually pick songs and design your service around the message as opposed to doing it all week of and not quite sure how everything is going to fit together. So 5 weeks out, I will go over my message 70 to 80%, do a message collaboration with our team. 4 weeks out, we will sit down after the message collaboration. I'll spend a little bit more time tweaking it. Again, it won't be 100% done by the time we sit down and plan the service, but the outline will be finished. The bottom line will be solidified so that we can plan a service around the message. And then for me, I don't even look at it for another 3 weeks until it's the week I am supposed to give the message. So I'm planned out. I'm not thinking about it 24/7, but again, if certain things happen that would fit well with the message or certain stories or illustrations I think about, I'll plug it in there and I'll wait till the actual week to go over my message. Now, we talked about this also in this module and this course, the importance of speaking it out loud. And so I will Monday morning sit with my message. Again, I haven't looked at it in a few weeks. Go through it, take the whiteboard, write all of my notes that are going to be on the screens on the whiteboard, and make sure it all makes sense. Spend a little bit more time on it, making sure it's concise. I won't necessarily talk through it, but I'll read over it, make sure everything flows, make sure I understand the biblical text and the context and all that sort of thing. And then 2 or 3 times, whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just depends on the week and how confident I am with the message, how well it seems to be, I will go over it out loud. I will go over it out loud so that, again, it's already been worked on. The week of, again, I go over it out loud. And here's the great thing. The pressure is not on building the message from scratch. It's already been built. It's about tweaking it. It's about giving it that extra 15% to complete the message. And I'm not having to stress about going from nothing to having a full message. And here's the great thing. I still kind of do write a message every week because we stay about 4 to 5 weeks ahead, but the pressure is not there. There's no pressure on this has to be finished this week because I'm not actually giving this sermon for another month. And so week of, I will go over my message a couple of times out loud, as well as working on one future message. And that's how it works for us, and it works great. If you ask our worship leader, he says it's awesome that we can pick songs that flows with the message. It allows us to sometimes add creative elements and different things to the service that we simply wouldn't have been able to do if my message wasn't written until a Saturday night, the day before Sunday. Now, you may be sitting here and that'd be like, how in the world do you actually get 4 to 5 weeks ahead? And so here's some things that you can take. One thing you can do is you can actually say, I'm going to block out a week and just hammer out a bunch of messages. That's one way you could do it. Another way you could do it is on a week that you're not preaching, still prepare for the next week. So that way you're already 2 weeks ahead right there, because although you're not preaching this week, if you have someone else preaching or that week, you can prepare the following week. And so you're already getting yourself at least 1 week ahead. And so the weeks that you're not preaching, still do the work of preparing a sermon to help get yourself ahead. And if you can get to the place where you are 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever your team is comfortable with, at that point, you can begin to get ahead. And so the beginning work takes a little bit of work, but once you do it, all you have to do is kind of keep it going. And then when you're busy, when you fall behind, there's no stress because everything is already finished. So all that to say, here's what I want you to know. You can get ahead. Now that may look different for your team and your personality of what that looks like. You don't have to be a year ahead, or maybe just 2 weeks ahead would be great. But by planning ahead, by working on your messages so you're not working week of every single week, it can reduce the stress on you and reduce the stress on your team. And getting ahead allows you to be more creative. It gives you the flexibility when you have a busy week, and it allows your team to really rally behind the message so that your service isn't kind of segmented between worship or communion or maybe announcements and then the message, but that you can bring it all together. So getting ahead is a great thing that you can do. I would highly recommend it. And by putting in the extra work, you will see amazing benefits for you and your team.